I can't remember who said it. It might have been the Burson speech. It might have been a different speech. But this idea, and I've heard this a lot, and it's something I disagree with. This idea that to be effective L&D people in the future, you need to upskill in AI and tech to the level where you can be building things yourselves. Now, there's a level, fine, there's always a level. Making content isn't it, by the way. In case you're watching and you're thinking, you know what, I can make images in Midjourney. I'm good. No, I don't agree with that. But this idea that we're going to have L&D departments that are going to upskill to the point where they're going to be talking about AI, they're going to be implementing large language models, they're going to be building agents in marketplaces, and they're going to somehow have a seat at the table next to the IT team who also do all of that stuff. It's not going to work because you're just going to show up and you're going to go, you know what, we can do all these things. And the IT teams will go, so we can do these. We already have a department that does this. We've got all of these teams, all of this infrastructure. Why don't you guys go away? So there's like that obvious consequence to that. And on the flip side, you've got the L&D teams who should be looking after people and cognitive needs and human hierarchies and all of these other things. And then there's the glue that holds all of this together, which is the data piece. What are the messages that we need to curate? What are the things that we need to maximize as good behaviors and all of the things around skills, which I've already given my opinion on. But all of these things are data. So we have basically three areas. We have the human side, we have the tech side, and we have the data side.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see where L&D departments decide to go in those three bits. There's a fourth bit, which I generally don't talk about. It's only talked about in the darkest corners of the internet. And that is that I suspect in the near future, because I also I just do AI in L&D, I also do AI in marketing and customer service and a lot of other, comms and other things. Now, what I'm saying is all of these departments are basically, we make media to elicit a behavior, and we release our media on a particular technology infrastructure, whether it's social media, whether it's something else, to try and elicit that behavior. And then we gather data on the interactions of people with media. Learning's that's basically what corporate learning is. That's basically what marketing is. And it's basically what external communications are. So all of these things seem to me that they all are going to be using AI for content generation or person-to-person conversation. They're all going to have some kind of architecture that allows them to do that. There's a future for me where all of these departments are basically one department, the media department or something. And then they just go off and do that. And then whether it's eliciting an internal person to have a particular behavior or a customer to have purchasing behavior or something else, it's much of a muchness. The AI stuff that workflow is going to be the same. Yeah. So I can see a future where these are all just one department as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Because like you said, if we're leaning so much into it, but the future of that specialism, if it still exists for whatever reason, is maybe something different. So what comes to mind when you talk about that is, don't disagree, especially from a content whatever perspective, is did L&D then become the guardians of, I don't know, communities and people and connection and, I don't know, whatever you want to call that piece? I know Andy Lancaster does a lot on learning communities, and could you use the AI to facilitate that, to do the hard work, the legwork, the notes, the arrangements, whatever you want to call it, but actually the skill of the learning person or the performance person or whoever, the coach, whatever it's going to be, is to provide more of that human stuff that we need to, that might become like a drug to us in the future if we're using that much technology. It's something we're craving even more. We crave that post-pandemic. Yeah. So yeah, it's really an unwritten book at the moment with all of this, isn't it?
Yeah, how do you access other people, right? This meaningful interaction that is innately human. And that's something that as digital becomes more scalable, I think that's something that becomes more of a luxury commodity. Yeah. It's going to be, if companies do invest in that, it's going to be the thing that only the top leadership can do, these networking events and things like that. And if only top leadership can do it, then it's going to be more sought after and more craved by everybody else, because you go, I need to be a certain level of seniority before somebody will talk to me in person. So that's going to be really rare.
Gosh, can you imagine?
I can imagine. Right. So we're going to have these kinds of interactions where we're online, and then somebody will say, well, can we meet in person? Can we meet for a coffee? Can we meet in London? And or the nearest big town. And we will probably see companies saying, you know what, you've got a budget for this, or you don't have a budget for this, or we can only approve it for certain levels of folks. And then they'll say, well, am I going to spend my own money on a train ticket and a coffee just to go and have an in-person interaction? Maybe, maybe not. So it's a foreseeable future, right?
Yeah, and we already operate in line with that with coaching, and organisations will only provide coaching at a certain level, right? Or leadership development, or any kind of training at a certain level. So it's actually not that too far of a jump, is it, to see that happening? Yeah. Which again is where you get back into displacement and things like that, and also entrepreneurship that we've talked about. Whereas the likes of, I can imagine yourself and myself will probably go, well, to that I'm going to go and do my own thing anyway. So which is kind of what we've done. We go a bit full circle on that, really, don't we? I guess we could talk about that for hours, isn't it?
Next time on this podcast, we talk about. Next time we do this, we should really go into the depths of big corporates and
love to
within the boundaries of what we can actually talk about.
Yeah,
I think there are.
Yes, I find it therapeutic talking about this stuff.
It's cathartic, right? But one of the other things that came out of my reflections on the Learning Tech show last week was that I've given a few speeches where I've talked about AI being the leveling factor for the playing field, where you can have big companies, the Mid-Journeys and Perplexities of this world, where you've got like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, and it's like $1 billion company, versus the traditional way of looking at companies where you needed to scale headcount if you were going to scale revenue. We're not really in that space anymore, and you can do a lot with a small company with a few people equipped to the hilt with all of the AI technologies that we have out there. But again, I wasn't really seeing much in the way of the technology that enables companies to do this was absent from the show last week. But some of the suppliers that were there were still in this category, right? So they have a handful of people, 30, 40, 50 people, maybe 80, 90, those kinds of numbers. And they're using AI to sell products to this particular market. So there's a mixture of things there. But this leveling of the playing field bit means that if you're an entrepreneur and you have access to the latest tech, the drive to use it, then why wouldn't you be able to compete with a huge company?
For sure. Yeah, level is probably the right word, because organizational edge, success, whatever you want to put as that benchmark, is going to change. And I guess that also comes down to, I don't know about you, but I can't stand when I'm asked to respond to a tender, or people say I'd like a written response on RFP, whatever, because there's always questions in there about like headcount, turnover, policy, all of this rubbish that actually low quantum rise. Don't get me wrong, we turn over a fair sum of money, but certainly not. We're not a Hemsley Fraser or a QA or anyone like that. And I now have the ability to compete on the bid from an AI perspective, but, actually, are you going to rule me out straight away because of our size? So there's a buying challenge on actually what does the right supplier look like, and does it matter how big they are? I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah, times. And I think this is one of the things that certainly, I think, saying this but very delicately, I think that public sector procurement needs to get right a little bit, and that is it fair? Is it fair in a way that a big business, a multinational, huge headcount can compete for a bid in the same way that smaller providers can? Because there are barriers that are, as I say, potentially insurmountable to certain sizes of business. And the reason I say public sector specifically is that you expect the government to be fairest to the population and to the economy.
Yeah.
Private sector businesses maybe less so, they've got different interests. But you expect that fairness in government, so that's something that I think they could do more to get right.
Absolutely. But, reflection on the entire population for that one, I think, is it? Let's see some more women, but let's see some more people of colour at these kind of events. We were talking about that, weren't we? And let's see some more representation of people of colour, not just talking about DE&I, which is what you often see. So, how does democratisation of AI support that stuff? It's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that I've been asked to give an opinion about that a couple of times, and I've declined to do so.
Yeah.
Because I tend to ignore is the wrong term, but I tend to keep myself slightly apart from DE&I initiatives.
Yeah.
For this reason, because they tend to be, this is where all the coloured folks hang out, right? And I don't want to be that guy. I want to do my own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a difficult one. But the topic of AI and DE&I, specifically, I've been asked to give that opinion, and I haven't yet, but we'll see if I eventually do that.
Yeah.
But there we go. Right, so look at one eye on a time. Let's wrap up there. So, Erica, this has been amazing. I'm going to ask you one more question, and that is the future of AI in learning and development industry. Utopia or dystopia? What do you think?
It's a heart versus head quandary, isn't it? Like, how do you define the future? I like the stuff that Philippa Hardman talks about in regards to, you have to wrap up your org structure, what you measure yourself on, blah, blah, blah. It's not just putting in more training designers using AI, blah, blah, blah. So I guess the positive, Erica says, I'd love it to be utopia. I think it can be a game changer, but it's mindset as well as skill set. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to take the positive spin, if that's all right.
Interesting. I think you know me well enough to know that I'm going to go the other way.
Where you're going to go, yeah.
I think it will be slightly dystopian because I think all the things we talk about, whether it's tech, whether it's performance consulting, because performance consulting is operational consulting, basically. But all of these areas where we say we should go into these areas, I think that the leap in terms of skills, whether skills exist or not, but the leap in terms of capabilities, let's use that term instead, for somebody who's in L&D who is either a trainer or an instructional designer, and therefore their jobs are most at risk of from the AI revolution. The leap to say those folks are just now going to go into AI, or they're just now going to go into performance consulting, or even coaching or something like that. All of these things that we talk about, I don't think they're possible. I think the leap is so big to shift from one thing to another that it's unlikely to happen. That itself, I think, causes a slightly dystopian view of people with current skill sets wandering around not finding something to do, and people with new skill sets from other parts of industries moving into the space that businesses need them to do. Yeah. So that's going to be a little dystopian because it's going to be chaotic. So that's my view on that. There you go.
Love it.
Anyway, so let's wrap up there. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're watching this on Spotify, don't forget to follow the channel. You can find us on all of the social media platforms, so follow us on Instagram and things like that as well. You get little clips of these podcasts. But for now, just thank you, Erica, for being part of this hour with me. It's been amazing to have you. And
thank you. It's been great to be here.
And let's catch up soon and do more of these. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching. See you next time.